Hi, Victoria. We'll go through this one together. All right. So they had a 25% share, meaning that 0.25 were tuned in and were considered tuned in a success. And now they're going to do a pilot study with only 8 households. This is a binomial distribution. So we want to find the probability that none of the households tuned in. We can do this the long way or the short way, so let's go here. This is our formula for the binomial distribution. And in this formula, the following things hold. N is the number of trials, so in this case it would be 8. Okay, that's their pilot study number. X is the number of successes. Okay, and that will change depending on the questions they ask. P is the probability of success, which in this case we'll consider to be 0.25. And Q is the probability of not a success, which in this case will be 0.75. Again, these N's and X's match up with this too. So the probability of 0 successes would be 8 factorial, okay, because our N is 8. Number of successes is 0, so 8 minus 0 is 8 factorial. 0 factorial. Now 0 factorial is not 0, so keep that in mind. 0 factorial is actually equal to 1. Okay, so whenever you see 0 factorial, change it to 1. Then we're going to have 0.25 raised to the 0, because this is asking me 0 successes. So I filled in a 0 here. I got to fill in a 0 exponent here, times 0.75 raised to the 8 power, because all of my trials are going to be failures. Okay, so that's one way to do it. The easier way is to go in and use the built-in functions in Excel. So here we can just ask Excel to calculate it for us. We type equals BINOMDIST, which stands for binomial distribution, open parentheses. The number of successes in this case is going to be 0, comma. The number of trials, which in this case was 8. The probability of a success, which is 0.25, comma. And then last I'm going to do false. Now the false true is the tricky part here. I do false if I'm not wanting a cumulative. At 0 it won't matter, we'll get the same number. But true tells it to take the cumulative. That means everything from that number down. So it would calculate, if this was a 2, it would calculate the probability of 0, 1, or 2. False would mean just calculate the probability of 2. We'll show you that again in a minute. So it returns back 0.10. And now if you'd have gone to the trouble to calculate this out, 8 factorial over 8 factorial also goes to 1. This goes to 1. Anything raised to the 0 power is 1. So it would just end up being 0.75 to the 8th power. And if you punch that into your calculator, you would get 0.10, I think it is. Okay, same thing as we got in Excel. Okay, now let's look at the next question. 0.100. Okay. The next one says find the probability that at least one household is tuned in. Okay, so next we're going to look for at least one. All right. Now at least one means that I have it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 successes. Now the hard way to do this is to calculate this for each one of these numbers, but we really don't need to do that. The probability of all these added together, okay, is also going to be equal to the probability of 1 minus we get 0. Remember, all of these are going to have to sum to 1, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The probability of 0 plus probability of 1 plus probability of 2 plus probability of 3, etc. has to equal 1. So in order to get the probability of all of these, I can just take 1 minus the probability of 0, which we already have. We just showed that to be 0.100. So if I take 1 minus that, it is going to be 0.900. And that's the right answer. And now the last one, it says at most 1. So let's look at what at most 1 means. If at least 1 means 1 and higher, at most 1 means 1 or lower. So it's the probability of 0 plus the probability of 1. Now we already know the probability of 0. We calculated it here. We could go back and do the same thing for P of 1. That would be 8 factorial. But now we've got 8 minus 1, so that's 7 factorial. 1 factorial. We would have 0.25 raised to the 1, because that's 1 success, and 0.275 raised to the 7. So if we calculate this out, we would get the probability of 1. We would add it to our 0.100 that we had before, and that would give us the probability of at most 1. But again, we can do this in Excel. So I'm going to use my same thing, equals binom dist, open, oh, spelled something wrong, dist, open, number of successes. Now this I'm going to type 1, okay. Trials, there was 8. Probability of a success is still 0.25. And now instead of putting false for cumulative, I'm going to put true. If I put true in here, it will calculate the probability of 1 and anything below it. So it's going to calculate 0 and 1, which is what we want. And we get a value of 0.367. 0.367. Okay, so that's the right answer. Now let me just show you. Up here we had the probability of 0. Okay, and I put false. If I wanted to find the probability of just 1, equals binom dist. Now I'm going to put 1. Trials are 8. Probability of success 0.25. And now I'm going to put false here. And this would just calculate the probability of 1 success. Okay. However, notice that I have the probability of 0 successes. So this is P of 0. This is P of 1. If I add those two together, equals probability of 0 success plus probability of 1 success, I get the same exact number that I did when I typed in 1 and put true here. So remember, true is going to calculate that number of successes down, and false is only going to calculate that number of successes. I hope this helps.